Welcome back for the third time to your new favorite Magic the Gathering Mono Black Draft themed podcast, Bogstompers. We're your hosts of the coast. Everybody introduce yourselves. We'll start with me. I am Joe, Joey, Joseph, etc., etc. These will be used interchangeably throughout the episode. I use he, him pronouns, and recently rescued from the cave he was trapped in last episode, Ev. Take the
It's
floor.
me, Ev. I'm no longer in a cave. It was really scary down there and wet, but I had my mic and my laptop, so I was still able to record for all of you fabulous people. I'm Ev or Evan, either one works. I use he and him pronouns. The two things will also be used interchangeably throughout the podcast. Bob.
Whoa, that's me. Hi, I'm Bobby. I guess I should also say that Bob is interchangeably used throughout the podcast. And that's Bowser. Bowser's not with me. Bowser's near Evan's screen. And yeah, I
Can you
use they and he pronouns. What's Bowser
can you hear
doing?
him this time?
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
People
that's
like,
cool.
yeah.
He's
Yeah.
relevant podcast lore. Just like
Yeah.
you fucking assholes. Turning my improv introduction, my little bit, into a thing that it's not.
Haha.
It's a that is a script you wrote.
We've
But
ruined it.
it's not okay. It's not in the script. Never mind all that. Friends, Tarkiri, countrymen, we return post Dragonstorm. We just got back from our respective pre-releases, whether they're formal, informal, or in my case, purely imaginary. We all went some number and to some number, as we'll talk about. It was the best of sets. It was the worst of sets. Honestly, from what I've seen, I'm not the maestro. I'm not in the know for this set as much as I am for some of the other ones we've experienced. But nevertheless, kind of seemed like it was another one of Magic's best last sets. Would we say that?
I think we
Yeah.
we hit the
I
peak.
think this is the last set of the year, actually. And the best one at that. A really low bar to come from Aether Drift to here. Uh, really, actually, very seriously, the change in quality from Aether Drift to this is a little absurd, in my opinion. But you know,
Aether Drift had like a
it's okay.
card, probably.
March of the World Ooze. That was a good card from Aether Drift. That's a
True,
cool one.
genuinely. I
Yeah,
do
like
keep finding Aether Drift packs in my house and cards in my deck lists on Moxfield. I don't know where they come from. Um, it was certainly a set of the last year. But Dragonstorm, mostly because we were a bit more actively paying attention to it, actually reading the web story beyond what glimpses of Muraganda we got, and actually playing the limited environment a serious, if not amount, an effortful way instead of just jamming games on Magic Arena and clicking through. Um, yeah, we've all got cards in our hands. We have a lot to get through today, a lot to talk about. Let's first start, I think, with Ev, because you had the truest pre-release of anybody here.
that's
What
correct.
is your takeaway impressions? And we'll obviously all jump in and out about what we think about individual card quality and design and draft archetypes, etc., etc. But I think your story is the most emblematic, so we should start with it.
Sure. Yeah, so I went to pre-release at my LGS. I had a great time. Super fun, limited environment, in my opinion. To be fair and completely transparent, I only played Bloomberg before this, but I've seen and watched other limited environments that I haven't played in myself, and this one seemed pretty fun. I liked it. I enjoyed building my deck and playing. I got a Jeskai kit and subsequently built Jeskai. My only complaint with it is that I ended up being paired against two other Jeskai players over the course of the night and lost both of those rounds, which is a little embarrassing to lose two Jeskai mirror matches, but I digress. And I played Teamer, and I ended up being the Teamer player. So I went 1-2 at my pre-release, had a good time. But I think the set was a lot of fun. I wish I had gotten the chance to see more of the clans play out, but I did not.
Let's be pretty fair to you. You're
Yeah,
not. This wasn't actually your first limited environment other than Bloomborough. It's just the first set that you were there to experience. We have done
correct.
other like
I've
chaos
Yeah, that's
drafts
true.
and custom set and
Cube.
cube stuff. We have actually we do have a fair number of limited games under our belts collectively
That's
now.
true. That's true.
Um, it's just that we don't generally make the trek to our LGS.
Yeah,
In part
I
because we can't all play together um, all that often, and additionally, for much of our Magic playing career, we didn't have a good local game store.
Yeah, I'm very thankful to have a great game store now. The environment I was in was really good. I think the night was sold out, which was pretty cool to see. So like the room was packed and everyone there's super nice, and I had a good time jamming games. Um, yeah, I mean, I had some cards that I really liked playing. I opened the new Elspeth, which was pretty good. Slam that into my deck. Awesome. Token doubler, does a whole bunch of stuff. Uh, I ended up probably using it in the worst way, and then I had to end up using it as a removal most of the time because my opponents had big threats on board. But you know what? I made some soldiers a couple times. That was pretty cool. Made a throw on the table and subsequently got it removed.
Yeah,
Uh,
when the worst card is removal, like when that's the
Yeah,
baseline of a card, you don't care. Like in limited 5 mana removal, you play that
that's true.
all
It's
day
fine.
long.
Yeah, I actually
I
want
was
to
going
talk
to
about.
correct myself and say, actually, maybe you're not a big limited player to go. Yeah, I just had this repeatable removal engine on board, and it kind of fucking sucked dick. Like, dude,
You
come.
know the issue is that it brought her down to two, and often my opponents had flyers, and then I couldn't
Hmm.
defend her, so she ended up like just getting removed immediately afterwards. So that was the issue. Is not that it ended up not being repeatable, and I only got to use the removal once when I played her. It's still a very good card. I'm not saying that, but it was just like I only really got to use it in that like oh wait, not as like necessary removal for me to live for another turn once. But that also might just be me playing. I do have another 5 mana removal I want to talk about really quick, which is Narset's Rebuke. Let me throw it to the card search so you guys can see, because I like this card a lot, and I played it a few times because there were quite a few big toughness creatures, specifically elephants that I played against when I played the teamer player
Dude.
my first round. I'm sorry, they were scary. I like this card. It is an instant for 4 and a red that reads Narset's Rebuke deals 5 damage to target creature, and then you add Jeskai. If that creature would die this turn, it gets exiled instead. This was fun and limited because it helped me trigger Flurry because I could cast it to get 3 mana back and cast another spell, and get my archetype going off, which was fun. And yeah, I think it's good removal. I liked it. I thought this was a fun spell. I had a copy of it in my deck. What else? What else did I have in there? Some standouts. Well, we got to talk about dragons, as per the name of the set. I
We
ran
have
Jeskai Shrine.
to.
We do. I know you don't like dragons, Joey, but me and Bobby like dragons, and that's also the namesake of what we're
And
talking about.
every rational
Okay.
person likes dragons. They're cool.
Yeah, you're just. We'll get we'll
It's just
we'll get to the
so lame.
we'll get to the elephants in the room when we get to you. I'm sure of it.
Elephants.
Elephants. Also, a lot of good elephants in this set.
Oh,
Um,
we're gonna get into that. Don't
I
worry.
know we're gonna get there. Don't worry. I'd like to talk about Jeskai Shrinekeeper as the next card that I liked in my deck. I don't know if you had a chance to play against this in any games, Bob, but I found it to be pretty good, both in having it played against me. I'm talking about a lot of 5 mana cards today, and also playing it. Jeskai Shrinekeeper is a dragon for 2 and a Jeskai. Has flying and haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you gain 1 life and draw a card. And it is a 3/3. First of all, like the art of this dragon, I like this weird sort of bird parrot dragon that is keeping watch over the Jeskai shrines. Flying haste 3/3 that gains you a life and draws a card. Pretty good limited. I got slammed in the face by it. I got to slam some people in the face with it, and yeah, I enjoyed it in that environment. And the last card I'm going to talk about is one of the sieges. I don't know if you guys have the sieges on your list to talk about, but I would like to talk about Frostcliff Siege because that was the one I ended up putting into my deck because I opened it and it was good. Uh, Enchantment for 1, and then blue and a red. As this enchantment enters, choose Jeskai or Teamer. Jeskai, whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card, and then Teamer, creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample and haste. Also really good. I think good outside of limited also, but that was my experience playing it was solid. I used both the modes and they were both solid and different. I like the flexibility of it. And playing out Jeskai games. It's a relatively cheap enchantment that lets creatures either draw cards or swing in for a win.
This actually brings me to one of the things I like the most about this new set is the cycles of everything going
Mm.
on. there
Yeah.
are just oodles of cycles. I saw so many during spoiler season, and playing the set, I realized that there are so many more. There's like a,
Yeah.
a common cycle of removal spells that have like two very disparate
Oh
modes.
yeah,
There's
all the breath, right?
yeah, there's the
No,
breath, the
those are those
exhale
also.
cycle that's also in there. There's a ton, and I think one of the highlights of those cycles for me was the three colored dragons: Armament Dragon, Sonic Shrieker.
Yes.
You mentioned the Jeskai, Shrine Keeper,
Shrine Keeper.
and then the Karu Goldkeeper, which I think will be, I think even making it into some commander decks. Quite frankly,
Oh yeah, it's super good.
it's
I
wild.
opened a copy, but
It
I didn't play Soul Time. So
Yeah, it is. It's a 4 mana 3/3 with flying. Whenever one or more creature card, whenever sorry, just cards leave your graveyard, you make a treasure. That's pretty good text. We've seen that
it's
before, or
it's
not
really
that,
good.
but treasures. And then renew. You
Indeed, we have seen treasures before.
yeah,
Returning mechanic. Good
dude,
job.
crazy that they finally went back to treasures. It's really a creative design space. But it also is renew for 5 mana.
Underexplored, yeah.
You exile it, and you can get 2 counters and a flying counter on target creature, which is just wild in this whole set. There were so many flyers abound. I want to talk about Carrick Guardian, the teamer one. Carrick Kick Guardian, apologies. It's 3 and a teamer for essentially Palladium Ores, except
Oh
not a
yeah.
legendary, so you can have multiple of them. I had 2 in my pre-release limited deck, and they rocked house. They hit people for 6, then got a removal spell, but who cares because they hit people for 6, and they're good for harmonize. They just hold down the fort. They were kind of killer. Underrated, just sleeper card for me. I opened a foil one. The antlers look so very pretty. I love dragons.
Oh yeah. I also love dragons. I'm talking. I think we can talk about the omens also now because I don't know how you felt about the omens, Bobby, but I liked playing the omens again because I played Flurry and played Jeskai, having them be versatile and be able to either play the. I thought the spell sides of a lot of them were pretty good in my opinion, and then also just being able to play them later as big creatures was really helpful if I drew into them again. A personal favorite was Twin Maw Stormbrood, which had Charring Bite, Sorcery Omen on one side, where it dealt 5 damage to our creature without flying, and then later you cast it for 5 and a white, and then flying, and when it enters, you gain 5 life. So I think I mean, there are a lot of other Omen dragons we could go through and talk about, but I thought those were fun, and again, I like the versatility of them. They're not quite adventures because they shuffle back in, but I like Omens as a design choice, and I think they're interesting.
Yeah, I think it's classic Tarkir, like limited, which I felt like I'm really glad that Dragonstorm harkened back to that, where everyone starts at 22 life on turn 3, right? Because they're playing just tap lands, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the omens help kind of factor into that because they allow you to have a much higher curve. Like I think I was
Mhm.
playing something like 5. I think I was playing 7 cards above 5 CMC, which for a limited deck seems not good. Like
Insane.
if you're there, you're gonna just lose because someone's gonna be faster than you, right? But
Yeah,
this Tarkir Limited isn't that. It is ramp and build up and defend, and then play a few giant lads and kind of swing face, or builds a ton of small lads and swing face. And I think that army
yeah.
building kind of gives such a weight to the world, and it makes it feel like a very different limited environment than every other limited set that's out there, where you just want to go fast, you want to kill them before they can kill you, you want to leverage your removal as fast as possible. But here it was way more about getting slow strategic advantages, and it really felt like every card mattered in a way that it does in the best of the limited formats.
I had a really fun time, and I liked playing my games. There were a couple really tight ones that went on for, a little longer, but for that same reason, where it was like everything had to be pretty calculated and like careful choices. I would like to bring up the non-elephant elephant in the room as one of Bobby's 7 drops, which is the new Ugin. We're going to get there eventually. I think we should talk about it. Uh,
Let's not bury the lead here.
I was gonna say,
Let's let
oh, we
the
talk about
gamer
Bobby's.
game. Let's
That's true.
turn to Bobby, who
This is
had
true.
a very interesting limited experience, which I was about to segue into.
yeah,
I
Um,
apologize.
no,
yours
no,
is very much non-traditional in how it fired off, but you've got some fun stories about that, and some cool stories about things that happened after you got to experience the limited environment. That's fine. That's cool.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about them?
It's okay that Evan spoiled the first Ugin because I can spoil the second Ugin that I opened. So I went to a local game store. I wish it was more local. It was about half an hour away. We drove out there after looking on the Wizards website, which had a pre-release listed at night. Unfortunately, we got there, and there's a long line at the register. We were like, "Oh, good. This must be a popular event." It looked like a lot of like backpacks were there. It was kind of hard to find parking, which is a good sign, I think. To get off of my story for a second, it's really cool that a lot of people are talking about pretty sold out pre-releases. Not for the people who didn't get to play, but cool for the fact that hey, it tells Wizards that we like this set and we like sets like this, which is neat in a world of Aether Drifts and Final Fantasies. People seem to support what they wanted, and that's always neat. So we get there, we go up to the register, and we pretty quickly realize that everyone is getting prize packs. And we go, oh, did their pre-release just run really long, and now they're gonna have a second one? No, we showed up 4 hours late, and the pre-release was in the afternoon. We checked the Wizards site; it was wrong. A person at the store was very nice and was apologetic and tried to help us find some other store, but they were also sold out, which really cool and impressive, but a shame that we didn't get the genuine pre-release experience. But it was me and four of my buddies, and we pretty quickly realized that hey, if we just buy a box, we can do sealed. Like we won't get the spin down, we won't get the promo, but we save like $3, and hey, we get to play with just ourselves and our friends, and that's pretty fun because I like playing with strangers. It's fun, it's cool, but I also am a little anxious boy. So if I can just hang out with my friends for a night and jam games, that's pretty cool too. So we ended up getting a box. Not to flex, but I also needed to get a box because I adore Tarkir. Tarkir was the set that hooked me. I've been playing since Gatecrash, but Gatecrash, Dragon's Maze, Theros, I bought cards, and then I, didn't really buy cards. I was a kid, and then
a famously very good era of Magic, full of sets that really capture an inventive young boy's heart.
exactly. And then Tarkir comes around, and that just, I think that's when like the game design like hit me. I was thinking about it more. I was thinking about it kind of constantly and all of the time in a way that I wasn't when I first started playing the game. I was like just hitting high school, middle school, whatever, and it was like, oh, all of these cards tell a story. I want to be playing this game for a very long time. So I bought a second box because I'm working on a Tarkir cube, colloquially known as the Tarcube. I'm sure that'll come up a few times in this episode as I'm talking and evaluating cards. I apologize.
Yeah, somebody will bring it up.
I will. Oh, it's delightful. And we got these cards and played a few games. Went back to our campus after a pretty long drive, and it was really truly very fun. I had a pretty busted deck. I did open an Ugin and just a ton of the Dragonstorm cards. I was in Teamer splashing black for the Rakshasa, the mythic Rakshasa.
You're telling me that in the set Dragonstorm, you opened a bunch of Dragonstorm cards?
Yeah.
Curious.
That's shocking.
Curious.
No, it's wild.
That's really weird. I only opened Return to Ravnica, so I'm pretty surprised.
Joe, you might not notice this, but there's a cycle called the Dragonstorm cycle of cards.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Is it
pretty
every
clever.
card in the set?
What?
Yes, it's all of them.
It's all
No,
of
it's
those
every card in the
cards.
set. You're right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for listeners at home, I do need to reiterate. I did not engage with the limited environment of this set at all. I'm the odd one out here. I am aware of the Dragonstorm cycle. I am just taking the piss.
Yeah.
But there will be moments where they mention cards that were probably spoiled on the last day, and they're banger commons and uncommons that wreck shop. And because I didn't go through the card image gallery, I'm gonna be like, that's not real. You made that one up. That one's fake. There's no way they printed a 6-mana 1/6 in the year of our Lord and Savior 2025.
Hey Joe, if you go to Scryfall and just type in Storm into the search bar, that's every card in the Dragonstorm cycle.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, so all of those cards I can confirm from playing limited appeared in my limited environment, including Stormcrow.
And Ambling Stormshell,
Uh-huh.
future Spider-Man All-Star.
It's
When
cracked on
Of
we
course.
Spider-Man. It's crazy.
It,
I think it's so funny that a new
I,
kid getting into
hold on.
Magic, right? They're building their commander deck and they're like, "Oh man, what cards are good for my Spider-Man deck?" And then an old man in a card store hands you this turtle and is like, "Put this card in." And
I
it's Spider-Man and a turtle running around New York City with I don't I don't get it.
I want to talk about that turtle briefly
Do it.
because that turtle cares about other turtles. I don't think there are any other turtles in the entire set. I think that's the only turtle in all of Dragonstorm, right?
Yeah.
I could be I'm almost certain Ambling Stormshell is the only turtle.
Yeah.
But you can draft
But
multiple Ambling Stormshells.
this is true. I just find that funny.
Yeah, in the
It's like
in
you
the
you have to open and play multiple Ambling Stormshells to make this card worth it. Or that's not true actually. You can just jam
Uh,
one in there for funsies.
That's
Uh
I need to tell you, yeah, that's flavor text. That last rule doesn't actually exist. Ignore that. Uh,
yeah.
it's
you're
not
not actually
even
supposed to engage with that.
even in even
Uh
if you had
why would they
a
put you on a card
million
then?
even if you had a million like 1 mana turtles, it doesn't make that last ability good because it just removes one stun counter. It still has it still has 2 more stun counters on it. So you've
So in
played
order to untap it, you have to pay 15 mana.
in this set, yeah.
Worse than Ringing Bell Mastery. Is that the 1 mana blue on? I played that in my deck. I'll talk
Yeah.
about it later. Continue your tangent, Bobby. We'll
Yeah.
go back to Ambling Stormshell later.
Yeah, so I wanted to highlight a few cards from my teamer Splashing Black for specifically the Hyerishan City and also the Rakshasa, which
Brad.
those rare lands are busted. They go in every deck. It's a little silly they got printed, but I'm glad that I opened a lot of them. Um, so one of the cards that I highlighted, I called this my pre-release promo because obviously we didn't get any pre-release promos the way we did things, but I did open up a foil Teamer Battle Crier. It is a Teamer for a 4/3. It is a creature orc ranger. Unfortunately, it's not a pony. It has a brilliant kind of horse pony thing in the art that's taking center stage there. But it says
I love
It's
this
such a-
weird fat little
it's
horse.
so
I was gonna say
cool.
it's such a thick horse. That's such a big
So
horse.
chunky.
Yeah.
So
I want that
chunky.
thing as a plush.
Yeah, I would pay. I would pay to get the Teamer Battle Crier horse plush. Wizards, if you're
Also,
listening,
notably, this is the promo in the bundles. So if you want this copy, you want this card. You won't actually get the cute fat little horse. It's riding a yak instead in that version of the art. But the card itself is actually going to be very accessible on the secondary market.
Yeah. Are you team horse or are you team yak? Tell us in the comments below. But yeah, this card says during your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater, which is a lot. It's like Hamza,
yeah.
you know. Like I played this guy down, and all of a sudden, I just could play my whole hand and overextend.
How is it? How is it like Hamza? It's not an elephant.
Good point. I forgot.
What?
It's much smaller than Hamza too. It's green.
True.
That's something. Hamza's green.
Mm.
Yeah. This is practically a Celestia card, Joe. Are you interested in it now?
No, he would-
When you recast it as saying, imagine if this card wasn't red or blue and was white and was an elephant, it kind of gets me excited.
Yeah, it's starting to look pretty
It's like
good.
That's how you pitch every card to Joe.
Yeah. So
So I'm hearing about this new Ugin.
yeah,
But what if it was, instead of a planeswalker, a creature? And also it was white and green instead of colorless.
Mm,
And it was an
So
elephant.
the,
yeah.
and instead of reading whenever you cast a colorless spell, it reads whenever you cast an elephant spell, exile a target
Don't
permanent.
don't start putting ideas in my head for things that could exist that will make me scream and cry and throw a fit at night that they don't. I will. You will find me catatonic.
I think it
I
would
know, buddy.
still
I'm sorry.
it would still be broken. I want to talk about that Ugin for a second because okay,
We
so I
should.
opened
We
the.
should.
It was
For a
like
second,
my
it's gonna take us probably the next 5 minutes of the podcast to deal with how fucked up this card is.
yeah. So
It's fucked up.
I'm like on my second to last pack, and I've got some decent stuff. I am don't know entirely what I'll be in, but it's not the worst pack ever in the world. And then I opened the borderless version of Ugin. Now the borderless version of Ugin is not my favorite of the arts, but it's okay because when I was cracking my box, I'm still in the middle of cracking my box. I have self restraint and self control and do it over several days because I don't get to do this often. But when I was cracking my box, I opened the normal art, which I'm very excited about. But the weird borderless art that has baby Ugin, but still on Tarkir for some reason on its backside, I don't know what to make of that. I don't understand it, but it certainly is in my hands. So
Yeah, it's hideous.
The baby art. Someone pointed this out online, and the baby art's weird because don't the dragons come fully spawned from the Dragonstorms? We can talk about the lore for a second, but
I think
not
we've
Ugin
actually
specifically.
talked about this.
Yeah, I think we've had this conversation. I can't remember the answer because I didn't feel like scrolling through all our
This
text.
is what we talked about during the pre-release stream. I remember now
Yeah.
when we all watched the pre-release stream together. I said, "Now hold on, this doesn't make any sense."
So it was you pointed out. It's weird. It's weird art.
yeah, so
Yeah.
admittedly, technically, from a Vorthos perspective, you could say that Ugin was a baby. The other five
Yeah.
dragons that came out of the Dragonstorms, it is weird that they have baby versions. The secret lair of elder dragons they printed having baby versions makes no sense, especially because they have creature type elder and they're babies, and that's a whole nother thing. But Ugin was a baby, but Ugin was
Yeah.
a baby on Dominaria. Ugin was not a baby on Tarkir. Did not go to Tarkir until many centuries later. There's a story, you can go read it. Came out in, I want to say, M20, M19, back when they printed the Nicol Bolas that flips sides. Like, we've seen young versions of Bolas and Ugin, and we know that when they were babies, they hatched out of the same egg or something weird. But certainly not on Tarkir, and certainly not on Tarkir with Hedrons in the background. So it doesn't make any lore sense. But that's not the problem with this card.
That's not the problem.
Somehow, if Bogstompers is the first you're hearing about Ugin Eye of Storms, I'm so sorry. But welcome. I'm gonna read it now.
You're gonna want to sit down when you hear this.
Yeah.
All you guys who are working out to this podcast, getting chores done.
Get really shredded.
You need to sit down a moment and hear about this card because it will blow your fucking mind.
Mostly,
I would recommend popping a Xanax, waiting half an hour, and then coming back to the podcast before we read Ugin Eye of Storms to you out loud. Ugin Eye of the Storms.
Mostly because I'm going to start reading, and it's going to take about 20 minutes until I'm done with all the text on this card. So Ugin Eye of Storms is 7 mana, colorless, because it's an Ugin, probably fine. There's no lands that combine together to make 7 mana in Modern or anything, right? It's a legendary planeswalker, Ugin. When you cast the spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. When you cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. And then it has 7 loyalty. And it doesn't do anything else. It doesn't need to, because that would be really good. A card that said that would be really good. It would probably be playable. Turns all your 2 mana artifacts, your mana rocks, your Moxen into exile removal spells. Great, perfect card. But I'm gonna glares for my podcast fellow hosts here that they actually added more text to this. It's probably nothing. No need to worry about it. Okay, +2. So it's going to be a reasonable ability because it's bringing him up to 9 loyalty on turn 7. That's ridiculous. Oh, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Okay, well that's a good one, especially in limited. You want to do that a lot. It zeros to add 3 mana. Okay, sure, it does everything. It draws cards, it removes things, it adds mana. Surely it doesn't have an ultimate. It does. -11, search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Until end of turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana costs. Uh,
I wish I'd opened a copy of this to put in Mirror.
yeah, it's
Let's.
You
Yeah,
fucked up.
I have a question for you. Have you ever wanted a card that ramps you, that is removal, that draws you cards, that gains you life, that takes damage for you, and that also wins you the game?
Yeah, I have
As if
before
so,
actually.
I've got this really bitchin' card to sell you for $70. Its current price tag at time of recording. Um,
I,
this is a 7 mana card that is going to ruin Eternal formats. Do you know how hard those two things are to be at the same time?
Yeah, this card is fucked. I played against it in my second round of limited, and I had like 2 really tight games with the guy I was playing against. But I think either one or both of the games he played Ugin, and I was like, well, that's like I. There's not much I can do in the face of this,
It's
frankly.
over.
Like I had a good board state too. Both of us did, but like I just like he was gaining through life and drawing a card every turn, and I was like I can't attack Ugin because Ugin's at 9 right away now, and like I'm at low life, and if I attack Ugin, I'm dead. But if I attack you, you can Ugin. Like it was just yeah, brutal card to play against.
I was
Wish I
It's
had
funny.
won.
It's funny that this is probably most reasonable in limited. Without easy way
Yeah,
to cheat it out, ramp into it, exploit it. You don't have a lot of colorless spells, except for the garbage you draft to try to glue together draft archetypes that
I
they intentionally put in the set.
I I I,
yeah, the
agree,
monuments.
I agree with you and I disagree with you. I think that limited, sure, like I was at 15 loyalty and I did not ultimate this guy because I was not gonna search for Ambermouth Sentinel, and for -11. I didn't need that. I would rather just draw a card and gain 3 life, and that's better. When the +2 is better than the -11, that's not because the -11 is bad, just because the +2 is way better. And I think that's why it's kind of gross in limited. Like you just can't do
I
anything about
mean,
this card.
sure. I mean, sure. You can argue that this card is better in limited than other environments because it doesn't instantly win you the game and instead wins you the game over several
Yeah,
turns
exactly.
inevitably. But I don't know if I agree with that.
I think the place where this is, and maybe I've just talked myself into it to let myself put my copies into my commander decks, but I think this is reasonable in commander, mostly because uh just I sorry with a caveat. I think this card is reasonable in Commander because it has all the problems of a Planeswalker in Commander. You play it
I
down,
was gonna
you'll
say, yeah.
immediately going to become the threat. It's going to die.
Yeah,
Who cares if it's at 9 loyalty? So mostly it's going to be a 7 mana removal spell, and you'll draw a card. That's whatever, and it'll gain you a few life, stop some
that's true.
attacks. Um, However, I think as soon as you are playing Joyra, the one that just says whenever you play an artifact you draw a card, this card is stupid, because then when you're playing it for the static ability, when you're playing it for the exile triggers, that's when the card is busted. I think
I
the rest of
mean,
the card is good, but in Commander, you're probably gonna play it for the first ability, and that's gonna be silly. I'm gonna play this
I
in
mean,
Karth of the Lion, which runs like 4 colorless cards, so it's gonna be fine and reasonable. But that's not where this is gonna find homes because people aren't as cool and as based as I am.
I don't know if you can say though that this is the problem in Joyra when Joyra's already a deck running Urza,
Yeah,
and like name it from Basalt Monolith to well, rest in peace Mana Vault. But basically every broken mana rock that's ever existed, and Lord knows if it could, it would be running Tolarian Academy.
Yep.
Joyra already is doing degenerate things long before
Yeah.
Ugin existed. Um, and honest to God, I don't predict this. I'm not saying that I don't think this will ever show up there, but if incidentally, somehow, for some reason, because it's too high cost, etc., it's not in like the top performing Joyra lists in bracket 4 or 5 or wherever they land these days. I don't keep up with the CDH metagame. Um, I wouldn't be taken aback to learn that. I'd say, well, all right, Joyra plays the best cards, and I guess Ugin's not one of them.
I hope he is. He's so cool. Ugin is so rad. Like, I mean, I read like his dialogue and his story moments, and the way they do a colorless planeswalker in such a different way than Karn. Like Karn feels colorless because he's an artifact, and to some degree because he's a pacifist and has that kind of internal struggle in him. Ugin is just so alien, and I adore that. I love that he's just like, yeah, let's kind of like do some experiments with Eldrazi. That sounds fun. And just like, hey, I'm pretty much immortal, and I'm a ghost, and I have superpowers and can casually summon dragons by accident. The fact that he just is a force of nature reads so well, and admittedly, I do think the card gets that flavor across. That Ugin can do everything because Ugin is crazy broken, in kind of the lore, and whoever's Ugin doesn't destroy the multiverse because he doesn't like need to. He just kind of exists and floats from place to place and kind of watches his brother. And yeah, I think the how they represented Ugin mechanically to differ from Bolas is really interesting, and kind of get his ideology on a card. I think that mechanical synergy with the story is neat. But I think that brings us to the story, and I know that Joe, you didn't get a chance to play pre-release or sealed, whatever I played, but I think all three of us had a chance to engage with the story, and to some degree, I think have very different opinions on it. At least I think I have a little bit of a different opinion on it than some other people in the Vorthos community. So yeah, I was wondering, where do you guys fall on it? I can start with Joe here because it looks like you're ready
Yeah.
to go.
This is my sort of predominant interaction with the set, and I've got to say, I think the story's great. Like, I consumed it. I'm a consumer. Me and media, we get along great. Um, I'm finally glad that they answered the question that yes, on new, more equitable, more culturally sensitive Tarkir, the Sultai do fuck the zombies. It's based, it's canon. I've always been wondering that. Like if the Sultai conditions improved, if they started venerating ancestor worship and having this militarized cast of beautified zombies, would they get down dirty and nasty with them? And it seems like the answer is yes. Or alternatively, in the Sultai side story, that one woman was just a huge freak. It's tragic that he passed away due to the Rakshas's meddling. Um,
That
but yeah,
story was awesome.
that
That
story
story
was
ruled.
That was the best
was my
one.
favorite part of Tarkir.
I agree.
Yeah, that story was super
Was
sweet.
like, yeah, hands down my favorite bit of what we saw from Tarkir.
I
Because there's been two very divergent opinions I've seen about this set. One, when it comes to story and lore and aesthetic design and cultural sensitivity, says I'm happy for the changes that the Khmer people, for instance, were the heaviest influence on the Sultai, and unfortunately, a lot of the Sultai carried Orientalist myths, just sort of in their world building and aesthetic design and philosophy. And I do get that, and I am proud of the Vorthos community because most of the Vorthoses I've seen online have stated, yeah, this was a net good, but I do feel they did lose something. And I do say that across Tarkir. Unfortunately, a lot of the clans had their sort of worst impulses relegated to the original Tarkir. We don't see a lot of the faults and weaknesses of the original clans, sort of the immoral practices they did, from the Abzans butchering and cultural genocide and adoption of youth into their culture, to the Sultai scheming and evil necromancy, that unfortunately does infringe pretty deeply into the territory of, Orientalist myth and stereotype, to the Mardus, how shall we say, less than honorable practices, even though they are, a clan of warriors who, at their heart, do believe in a code of conduct. Um, Really, like, trying to get away from a lot of the very, very negative characterization of one of Magic's only non-white culture dominant planes. Did also remove a lot of the tension between these clans and when it comes to um, active sort of criminality, brutality, savagery, uh, uh, that you would ideally like to see in a war-based fiction for high fantasy. But ultimately, I think in side story moments, especially in the Sultai side story, we do see that Magic is still committed to making these clans as out for each other's blood as they once were. They're just more than that. Um, when I want to talk about some of the cards that I experienced in a very different way from these lovely co-hosts I've got on my podcast, our podcast, we all share it, but it is mine because we share it. Um, I'll touch on a lot of the stuff I appreciated about the cross clan friendliness, but yeah, it is a little unfortunate to see some of the original negativity on the plane sort of brightened up. Um, the alternative perspective, I should finish the thought, was one that was much more purely, I like this. I like that we see camaraderie and brotherhood and interclan relationships, which I agree. I just don't think it's the full range of what Tarkir is to me. I do think war has a significant place on the plane as a narrative backdrop.
I will
I
say,
will. I will say. You go first,
no,
Bob.
we will say. So we
We,
said I
we
will
both say the
say in
same thing.
unison, so we can say the rest of this in unison too. I was gonna say that playing the set felt very differently. I think I initially reacted like, oh, they changed a lot of, some of the complexities about these clans. And I think originally a lot of people were rubbed the wrong way by that because it felt like they were totally, cleaning it up for, I don't know, it seemed for noble reasons, but it could have also been for, hey, it's easier to tell a story this way, right? Um, but after playing the set, the complexities of these clans are still there, and they've also managed to be more accepting of other cultures, which, wow, Magic Story has not always been that, and it's really cool that we are at a place where Magic can be that and can be diverse and multicultural and still have complex characters and complex narratives. I want to bring up the Sultai side story again. I feel like it does a really good job of that. I want to bring up the Siege cycle, which does a really good job of that, saying, hey, this world with many fully realized cultures still has territory disputes and still has immoral practices, war and otherwise, that are going on. It's just that at this particular moment, they are more concerned with fighting off dragons than anything else, which is cool. And I don't know, what is a neat way to fight back against Orientalism, which takes far too many stories, especially stories told from Western lenses about a theoretical East. And yeah, I am thrilled with the direction they went in for the clans with this, as much as it is different. I look at my beloved CDC, and I'm honestly glad with what they did with her. She is still very evil. Now she has a bunch of evil baboons, zombies running around, and
Awesome.
is fantasy racist to zombies, which is neat as they're accepted into this culture. It wasn't just a retcon; it was a fully realized thing, much like the renaming that happens in Aetherdrift of, I cannot remember the plane right now.
Avishkar.
Avishkar. Yes, Avishkar. which is terrific, and I'm glad to see Magic making strides on that. However, my problem with the story comes from the story itself. I thought the main story articles were written very well. I did not like the plotting. It felt too much like Elspeth and Narset and Ajani go to a place, then they go to a different place, then they go to a different place. Uh, it was just them finding out more about the boring mystery about Jace being evil. Guess what? Jace is evil now. That's been the twist to every story for the last 2 years of sets, year of sets. I don't can't keep track at this point. Loot isn't
Yeah.
in it that much. That's cool, but and then it's a
Thank God.
yeah.
I will say the story that Loot is very much a focus of is very good. I do
Yeah.
like the dynamic Loot, Jace, and Vraska have with each other, even if I think Loot on his own sucks. Like objectively bad to look at. Uh, uh, Kind of ruined parts of Magic's story irreparably. I did spend $20 on the Loot dice bag because I hate him, and I like
Why?
having a little homunculus to punish in my room. Um,
Joe's just
but
gonna like
ultimately,
throw him at the wall when he gets mad at the story as
it's
hard as he
true.
can.
I do like I when Loot is with his parents, I like him probably 6 to 8 times more.
Agreed.
It's just whenever I see him in the absence of them, or he's
Mhm.
discussed by, say, Winter, the new edgy emo boy at the front of Magic Story, 2 fucking cards and 2 sets. Awesome, love to see it. Um, he sucks. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He sucks.
I will say I didn't. So I had less of a strong connection to the original Tarkir block than you guys, just because I started playing later. And I've liked Tarkir because you guys like Tarkir. And Bobby, the first game I played of Commander, Bobby was playing Sidisi. Miserable deck to play against for my first game, but I have a soft spot for Sidisi because she was the face of your Commander deck for my first game. And you guys always talk so fondly of Tarkir. I was excited to get to experience it, not from like a viewing it as a set in the past that had happened that I still see cards from sometimes. It's something that I get to like see as a new player. So that was fun for me. Um, the story, Bobby, I agree with your criticisms of the story of that it was just people go places and follow the same twist we've had. I did really like the story where Elspeth and Narset fought a dragon because some of the descriptions of Elspeth covered in blood were rad as hell. I like that part of the story. And Joe, for me, seeing the clans and like the idea of war as a backdrop, I think it's still a backdrop from my understanding of it from a story perspective. Is that a lot of the clans are also now rebuilding after everything with the Dragon Lords and then being defeated, which was done off screen, which was funny. Not funny. We can talk about that also. But from my understanding, it's like that point of rebuilding. And so, although war and conflict comes up, like in the siege cycle, like Bobby talked about, it's less at like the core of their characterization across clans. Is my like view of it as a newer player into Tarkir for this cycle of cards.
Yeah, it can. Let's be clear though, it can be funny. If you think it's funny, you think it's funny. That the
It's a
Dragon
little
Lords are
funny.
just suddenly gone. Um, I do think that objectively what I am saying is false. Like, if you want to
Sure.
look me in the eye and say, like, listen, here's this cycle, here's certain flavor text picks out from the set, here's events that happen in the story, you can build a very, very compelling argument for this Tarkir is the same Tarkir that we left behind, just changed by time and fate and et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. That doesn't
Okay.
change the emotional resonance the set has. And
Yeah.
because a lot of Magic veterans have this opinion, which can be false, um, I don't think I don't feel wrong to say it, um, even if it isn't strictly true, because
Yeah. I'm
ultimately
not saying
Wizards doesn't have the job of just writing the best story and writing the best worlds in their world building guides. Their actual goal is to communicate that story as best as they can. Um, that was a struggle in plenty of places. Duskmourn, for instance, really, really suffered from that, where people thought of it as the Stranger Things plane, when it actually had some of the best web fiction in the entire franchise, we could even just say. Um, it's a interesting thing to try to thread the needle on, um, especially because like I liked a lot of the story. I found the story really really good.
Yeah,
I would read it on my breaks at work. I thought the finale was great. That's probably why I'm so defensible. I think the story overall is so defensible because I really really liked the ending. I liked the last two story pieces that really focused on Jace's ploy a ton. Um, I will say I did cry at um Ajani and Elspeth at the finale, where she says, I believe the quote is, "What have you just come to see me die again?" And he said something like, "No, I'm here to fight alongside you." I really liked pushing past that sort of black cloud that's hung over their relationship ever since Elspeth got reintroduced. I think they have one of the most compelling dynamics in Magic. I really, really like these two as friends. Um, yeah, a lot of the callbacks, a lot of the touches, a lot of the things I think were generally positive. Um, but that doesn't fully diminish the initial impressions that a lot of people got. Um, and I still see people on the Vorthos subreddit constantly asking questions that were readily answered in certain places, either in interviews or like on Morrow's podcast or in articles posted to the mothership. Um, and while I'd like to say that, all of the people who don't understand the set are illiterate, I think the truth is if there are a certain number of them, then WotC needs to find ways to communicate its lore and aesthetic resonances a little bit better.
I honestly, I think that playing the set has helped you with that. I think that
yeah,
preview and preview season, and kind of Magic culture as a whole leads people to not being able to accept any change. We saw that, uh, with Avishkar. We saw that with the changes to New Tarkir. We saw that with Kamigawa. Notice the through line with these places. Woo, they're non-traditional Western cultures. Wow. So I don't know. There's parts of the Magic player base and community that have to think about that and address that, and accept that maybe preconceived notions and what has been showed in Magic's past is not exactly healthy, and finds itself inspired by a media that we don't want to be inspired by. But I think when you look at the set, when you play with the set, you understand how it's changed, and it feels like the same Tarkir. Like I think when I was first playing the kind of my version of Sealed, that's what I felt. I was like, oh, we're back. We're back on Tarkir. It is the clans that I know and love, and sure they are different a little bit, and sure they got rid of the Dragon Lords, but hey, look at this flavor text. It references that. Look at this character. It's reminiscent of this old other character. The Summit Intimidator. How we've seen it grow and change from the Summit Prowler. How we saw it in March of the Machine. That's neat. How they show story on Tarkir is one of the most fully realized. There's the Watcher of the Wayside, I want to say, is that colorless card that shows
I've
up
actually
in
put
each
this
Tarkir
card aside.
Totally, yeah.
Um,
I think it might be
because
time
I think
to
its
get to
story
that.
is
yeah. We
huge.
can transition to Joe's cards now as we. I think we're wrapping up on time if I'm looking at my clock
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. There's a few cards that I've put aside that I thought would be great to talk about, and that is one of them, Watcher by the Wayside. The full cycle begins with da-da-da-da-da. Uh-oh. The card won't load for me. There we go. Witness of the Ages. Um, we're not going to read the rules text of these cards because they're all just for limited play. But Witness of the Ages began as this mystery golem that we didn't understand the purpose of in the original Cons of Tarkir. It just strode through the Timor Wastes, the frontier, the frozen Arctic elements of the plane. And it wasn't until Fate Reforged, when we went back in time, we learned that it's actually Pilgrim of the Fires. It was a Jeskai piece of artifice that was used to move between the different fires of the Jeskai Way, which is neat. So when we go back into the future for Dragons of Tarkir, it becomes Custodian of the Trove, and Salumgar stole it and used it as just a display piece in the hoard that he accrued. Sort of this tragic end. And once liberated from Salimgar's horde by the revolt of the Sultai, it finally becomes Watcher of the Wayside. I'm going to read its flavor text because I pulled it aside specifically for the flavor text in conjunction with its previous incarnations. Against dragon lords, Khans, and Ugin himself, the golem survived. Original purpose forgotten, it awaits orders that will never come from a world that has moved on without it. It's a really interesting, sort of sad, somber note to leave the card on, but the fact that it's a really tranquil, peaceful one makes me feel this is a good ending for it. As opposed to being a guardian of the horde of a tyrant, I think it's nice that it left, it fell by the road, and sat and observed and waited. And this is the end of its story. And I actually kind of hope they don't revisit it. I think this would be its best end.
Oh yeah, it's a nice narrative cycle for it to have. And again, even if we come back to Tarkir in what, like 7, 8 years, whatever, I don't think it should be a card like you said that is re-referenced, because this is a nice like narrative circle for it, not circle, but arc for it to end on.
I, I
You know,
do I do think it is almost kind of a circle. Like we see it originally and it's in nature more than it is in society. And now back again we see it in nature. It's come full circle as the clans have. It rises with the clans, and it might seem somber to have this robot just out lost in nature, but it's not a somber note. You gain to life, right? Like, sure, you lose things, but you lose things, and in the world of Tarkir, when cards are put into your graveyard, those are not, memories that you're losing out of your library. Those are things you can reuse. Memories, ways of the past that you can now reference and renew, as the Sultai mechanic says, or harmonize, as the Teamer mechanic says. Right? This is a card that helps you renew, it helps you harmonize, and it gains you life. This is a card about healing, and mechanically, as well as kind of flavor text wise and story wise, they really wrapped up this card absolutely beautifully. Much more compelling than the simple morph of the original, I would say.
I do like what this set does to reference original Tarkir, from like the very brutal cudgel over the head of Skirmish Rhino is Siege Rhino, to the funny story that Meandering Tower Shell had into Gorex the Tomb Shell on Innistrad as a reference, and now we're back with our Ambling Storm Shell. There is another turtle in there. I didn't mention the original zombie Dirtle Turtle.
It's not a zombie. Meandering Tower Shells. It's a pure turtle, baby.
No, no,
Oh, sure.
the vanilla one that
Yeah,
comes
the one
back
eight.
yeah,
in
the
Dragons of Tarkir is what I'm
mod,
talking about.
yeah.
There's an additional one. Also, side note, Blossoming Tortoise and Bedrock Tortoise are still in standard, so maybe we'll have 12 Turtle as a deck. To what is probably my favorite reference, early on in previews, I pretty heavily thrashed Wizards for not having one, two, but three different Alesha reference cards. I thought it's a little ridiculous that we're this far in and we keep only referencing a single trans woman character in Magic. Um, it would be unfitting if we completely left her behind. I think that this set needs to show her legacy on the Mardu, especially after the Secret Lair drop did a great job showing, how trans culture interfaces with Tarkiri culture. But that was that was long before the last sort of Magic lore post where it's revealed that Fellothar is also a trans femme character in Magic, the second to exist outside of Universes Beyond or Dungeons and Dragons. In which case, I take the critique back. I'm very, very happy with that change. The fact that we're seeing, more binary trans representation after we got a good amount of non-binary representation from Yaheni to Alaru to Halar, to
Rocco.
even in this set,
You
two of
ready?
the Spirit Dragons are, two of the Spirit Dragons are not traditionally masculine or feminine. The Abzan Spirit Dragon is a conglomeration of Abzan spirits, so it uses multiple pronouns, us/we, etc., etc. So that was an interesting. I wouldn't call it so much a reference, but it does tie into the previous culture that this set means, on a meta level for players. I hope we see more uh, Abzan girlies at our LGS instead of everybody being forced into Alesha if they want their rep. Um, but speaking of Alesha, this isn't a reference specifically to her, but this is a card from her clan. I'm of course talking about Desperate Measures. Most of the cards I'm going to be talking about today are commons. They're not especially noteworthy for their impact on limited or constructed. But Desperate Measures is a removal spell in black. It's cool in that it's like a modal, either Skull Clamp or Dark Blast. But the really important thing about this card is the flavor text. Sing for us when we depart for battle, and sing for us if we fail to return. Mardu parting. The fact that the clans are taking back their enemy color and they're really leaning into it, and even though this is a black card, they touch on the Mardu arts of, their bardship and how they are actually, one of the most musically resonant clans on the plane. They are specifically a very bardic culture. I love. And I love seeing how that touches on their war culture, their warrior culture of honor and death. And I think this is a really cool flavor text. It's actually one of two Mardu cards I'm going to talk about today that really touch on their culture. What do you guys think of this? Have you guys seen it? Did you even pay attention to the flavor text back when it was in your sealed pools?
I didn't open it during sealed. I am more inclined to look at art. Usually, it has like the art is
Yeah.
gorgeous. I think the art for this, all the posing on the figures, is just fantastic. Let me look who the artist is really quick.
Gabaleps.
Gabaleps, I think just gorgeous. I believe the clan symbol in the background. Is it the clan symbol in the background?
Yes.
Yeah. It also looks
Yes.
like angel wings from the middle figure, as if they have because they've been shot and passed away. I think it's killer art.
Yeah.
And I don't think I read the flavor text when the gallery popped up, but it makes it even cooler in my opinion, even if it's only playable-ish.
I think this card is. I hope it's playable because I'm going to champ it in some decks because it is just beautiful.
Yeah.
I think the art
Awesome.
caused me and my friends to go look up other Gabaleps art, and terrific artist, fantastic designs. Did a lot of D&D and also Unfinity stuff actually, but the new Tarkir stuff is absolutely fantastic by them. And anytime they incorporate the watermarks of these clans into their art is really fantastic. I remember playing original Tarkir, and the imagery was huge with those. It was like, hey, there are no dragons on this world. This is a magic set without dragons, which we rarely get. But it was so ingrained that the dragons were part of these cultures because on each different card there was a symbol of them. Like the dragon's wings represented the speed of the Mardu. That was the line that was plastered on every ounce of packaging that they could for the Mardu. And they had all these for the clans, and that was really rad. And I'm really glad that we see that even when the dragons become the enemy, we see like, hey, there's this like primordial idea of like a spirit dragon which comes through in these symbols. It's a neat way to incorporate the lore and the art and all the flavor text in kind of one.
You'll have to forgive me. I'm actually wrong. 3 cards reference the Mardu in my collection today. I was confusing one because its gameplay purposes similar to Desperate Measures. We'll talk about that. But this next card that I've brought up for flavor text specifically is Furious Forebear. This is a creature. It's a spirit. It represents the Abzan, and especially the new Abzan. And I thought the line, "Your hatred dampens the land with my kin's blood. My love will flood it with yours," is just a very resonant idea. I keep using that word, and honestly, Magic deserves the compliment with this set. Tarkir does feel like a real plane. I still had my critiques of it, and I'm not taking them all back, just talking to you folks today. But never did I think this plane was subpar. The new revisit to Tarkir, even if it doesn't fully feel like Tarkir to some of the player base, I think should still feel like some of the best world building Magic's done in the last half decade minimum. Um, Furious Forebear, I think, is a interesting card in that, we're never going to see this again outside limited. Even Spirit, Kindred, the Brews, and EDH aren't going to be touching it. But that line about righteous love, fighting back against the those who harm your descendants. We saw a lot of really cool stuff like this on Innistrad, our last revisit in Midnight Hunt, with the spirits having a really pro-humanist and kinder story purpose than they might have in previous planes and different sets. But I like seeing that carried into the future. I really, really like when spirits are depicted as kind and righteous and noble, and their love is everlasting, even if their body has since departed.
Yeah, that line is metal, and I think also highlights the flavor strength of the new Obzon and how like having their ancestor spirits guide them or fight for them or avenge them in some aspects is like really strong and powerful. And them getting the kin trees back after they were destroyed is a pretty cool reintroduction of that part of their lore.
Yeah, I think about Retribution of the Ancients, so the original Tarkir set. When I'm looking at this, fantastic card, and yeah, I opened Abs on my original pre-release, and I loved how they're represented here. Joe, do you want to go rapid fire through a few of these and maybe focus in on just one or two more before you wrap things up here?
Yeah, I'll focus on two more very, very quick here. Yeah, I'll focus on two more really, really quick here. These are three cards that each have two things in common with each other, right? So 1 and 2 have something in common, and 2 and 3. First, we'll talk about Hardened Tactician. I'm not even going to read the flavor text of this. In fact, the actual resonant piece of lore in this set is this card is just the rules text. Sacrifice a token, draw a card, depicting a Mardu warrior missing her arm. Um, the idea of I heard this comment and I haven't been able to get it out of my brain. The idea of showing a character visibly scarred by war, having the rules text, we need to make sacrifices, just hits way harder because you know
Yeah,
that she has withstood the same Ludo narrative that's on the card design. And it still shows like the ferociousness and confrontation and brutality of the Mardu pointed in the direction of their beliefs and their people. And this same overall narrative also appears on Worthy Cost, the card that I said is very similar to Desperate Measure for me. Worthy Cost is a removal spell. It'll probably see some like commander play and the like, but the actual thing that I want to talk about here is the line, "Victory is survival," is the tenet that guides us. My love, know that I will always ensure your survival. Duvir, Mardu Warrior, final letter. Um, I think the Mardu were done great in the set. I am shocked to see, one of my um clans, one that I think is okay, turn into my favorite. Probably from a narrative perspective. The Mardu just have so much about them that's great here. And I love that their touch on, survival and endings, but still being capitalized on how can we preserve and defend what we love most, especially on that second card. Do we have any final thoughts on the Mardu before I take the same bead of love on Tarkir, love for Tarkir, love for each other on Tarkir, and bring it to probably my favorite piece of flavor text in the set?
I want to really quickly talk about the new Zergo. Zergo's a character who's near and dear to my heart. It's my younger sister's first commander deck, and commander deck I face very often, and I absolutely adore how they've shown the changes in Zergo in this new timeline. Whereas the clans are rediscovering themselves, Zergo is kind of rediscovering himself too. And the mechanical difference in the original versus now is fascinating to me. The original only cares about himself, gets stronger when he kills other people, is indestructible on your turn, doesn't care about his own toughness, just a 7/2 for 5 mana. Great. The new one says warriors can't sacrifice themselves at the beginning of your end step or your turn. That's so cool. Is like, no, this new Zergo is not about himself, it's about others. It's like, hey, you don't get to die. You're not dying here. You're coming with me. That line is fantastic. It's like, hey, you mobilized, you came out to war, you came out to fight for us, then I'm gonna honor you and I'm gonna protect you. That the way they showed that story across Zergo Bellstriker and then Ojutai or Zergo and Ojutai from March of the Machine, and now our new Zergo card that we got in the main set is absolutely fantastic and has probably inspired me to build a commander deck out of them, just based off a new found love for the Mardu that I never really had before.
Then we'll take us to our finale. This is a reprint. This is a card that we've all played with, that we played with in Limited, almost certainly. Some of you folks at home, depending on your colors. If you played Commander with any kind of budget, you've touched these cards. I'm talking about the Gainland. And specifically, I'm talking about the Gainland Dismal Backwater. Now, this is actually part of not just a cycle in that they're all the Gainlands, but a sort of narrative cycle where it's been pointed out that each of the two color lands on Tarkir depict two clans interfacing, and if they're allied colors, it's a friendly relationship, and if they're enemy colors, it touches on war somehow and bloodshed. Keep in mind, some of those are a little different from one another. The one that the Abzan and the Sultai share touches on how they both really care for the dead, and that's how they come into conflict, so a bit more of a noble reason for conflict. And similarly, the one describing how the Mardu repurpose Temur lands discusses how even though they take over the territory, they don't profane their holy sites. Again, showcasing that the clans are a bit more noble in their wars with each other. But even though all of the flavor texts, you should go and read these cards. You should go and see the stories on each dual land because they're great.
And there's a
My
Hamza
favorite is the one
reference.
on Dismal Backwater. Hamza's on one, exactly. Who's coming in Alchemy. I'm gonna be talking about that next episode, even probably. How mad I am. Dismal Backwater reads, I ask only that the winds return you to me as swiftly as they bear you and the storm crane away. Samthar, Sultai Merchant, to Xialing, Jeskai Monk. The fact that there is a relationship described between these two individuals in the clans, I mean, I love a good star-crossed lover story. I think it's a really beautiful little micro narrative, and this individual card. Like I genuinely think that Magic does really, really powerful romances when it wants to, in the biggest and in the smallest scale. Worthy Cost was a great one. But Dismal Backwater, the fact that it has all of this past story feeding into it, on top of the fact that it has the current, political climate of Tarkir informing it as well. I think that this is a good sign for Tarkir to come. Um, Even if it ends up somewhere a bit less fraught than where it began, um, I'm still interested in seeing the future of this plane, and I'm still interested in seeing a return to these characters. They don't need legends. They don't need to be commander deck heads. Um, but I want to hear about what happens to Samthar and Xialing our next time we're on Tarkir. I want to see another nice little flavor text on a different dual land, discussing how Sultai and Jeskai marriage ceremonies interface with each other, because it's in those little cultural details that a texture forms.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could talk about this set for another 2 hours, frankly, just because there's a lot of good in it. Joe, I will say, you said you had 5 cards to show us. There are 5 elephants or cards talking about elephants printed on 6. Excuse me, 6. I forgot about the Temur Monument. And I'm surprised. I thought you were going to just bring up all the elephant cards, but that I suppose is our next episode.
I there were some of the elephants I liked,
Yeah,
but the fact that I cut other flavor text that I thought was equally beautiful, it made me say, "There's only so many minutes in the episode."
yeah, and we're
Tragically,
already
we can't.
over.
They're all gone. We've used them up. Our budget's finished. We can't touch too much on the elephants, except holy shit, Craterhoof Behemoth reprint with elephant art. Are you
Whoa!
kidding me? That was made especially for me. I'm gonna be running Craterhoofs in all my decks, because now it finally has art that I'm ready to use. I can't wait to spend $100 on 5 of them. I'm in. I'm strapped in. I'm locked in. You guys can have your Ugins. You can have your modern warping new game pieces. I just want to be slamming down my hoofs, probably behind like 4/7 mana 4/4s with vigilance or tap to regenerate an artifact. That's what the average elephant does.
Any final words on Tarkir, friends, before we move along home?
I wish we had more time here. Very, very frankly, like I think this play is awesome. I think this set is awesome. I would like to do more of it. I am genuinely considering buying more of this set when I have the cash too, because I like it a lot and would like to open more of it for sure.
Hey, Ev, quick question.
Yeah,
You want to part with your shield red?
yeah.
Awesome.
There we go.
Uh,
I'm gonna buy a bundle.
Perfect. I'm more than satisfied with this transaction. Mail me your shield red. I'll give you the $75, and then you can buy Tarkir.
Can I just give it to you the next time I see you instead of me worrying about mailing it?
We'll figure it out. We'll see how that
Okay,
ends up.
we'll do business transactions after the show.
We'll do our business transactions off the podcast. My final thoughts are all over the episode. It's complicated. It's nuanced. I have a project in the work, a little script that I'll probably touch on a little more next week. But ultimately, I don't think I have a negative opinion of this set in any way that matters. It's
Yeah.
a great set. It's great magic. Um, yeah, Bobby.
It feels like coming home. It feels like this is the card game I started playing so many years ago when I, slammed down a Blossoming Stance and gained a life on turn 1. There's nothing better. When I'm engaging with this world, there's nothing better. I felt transported back in time, and that's what I was looking forward to. When they initially announced a return to Tarkir, I was terrified because I am not entirely optimistic about the way Magic is heading, but it was fully realized. It was, dare I say, from newness bias and whatever. I think it might have been better than the originals. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It may have been one of my favorite sets of all time, and I cannot wait to continue playing it with the people I love the most. So yeah, keep designing sets like this, Wizards of the Coast, and keep
We
writing
know you're
beautiful
listening.
flavor text.
And we'll keep giving you money. Okay. That's that, everybody. We'll be back next week with something not current events related. Don't worry, we're not trying to just steal, tap tap concedes MO. Something
They're
goofy,
scared of
something funny,
us.
something I believe Ev's gonna lead. It's
Oh
your
yeah,
it's your plan next? Okay.
it's my podcast now.
Please take care, have fun, jam more games of Limited. We'll see you next time we see you. This podcast goes up twice a month, and we'll probably talk about a recently released set, maybe next with Edge of the Eternity. Everything else that's coming out soon and also late, you're gonna have to go to a different podcast for. We don't know anything about Final Fantasy. Fuck that shit. We love you. We appreciate you. Very thankful for all the engagement you've given us these past few episodes, and we're excited for any engagement you give us anymore. Tell us your thoughts. I'm sure we'll be in the comments
Oh,
responding.
oh,
Oh,
sorry. We're on. Follow us on social media. We are Bogstompers MTG. I'm with Instagram and Blue Sky. We are also streaming on Spotify now. You might be listening to this on Spotify, and it might be redundant. But if you're on YouTube, but you're like, man, I really want to listen to those past episodes somewhere else, check us out on Spotify. We're there too.
keep in mind, do still put the YouTube episodes up muted. We want
Yeah,
as
do
much
both.
money as possible, so we can buy more Tarkir Dragonstorm. But with that being our last major announcement, we're so happy to have had you this lovely evening, morning, afternoon when we got you. And please take care of yourselves, take care of the others. Now, please play us off.
Bogstompers, a Magic the Gathering podcast, features art by Jay Howley. You can find him at The Howley on Instagram. Our theme song is written by Alicia Chapman. Bobby Fasciano edits these and gets them online. Hey, that's me. None of this would be possible without viewers like you, so thank you, and see you in the bog again very soon. Peace.